breakfast tonight, 7 o'clock. Be there.
For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly...
Bob, love the data mining idea, and I need $12 for the donut club.
Where's my yogurt?
Bob, do me a favor.
From idea to implementation, we're on the team.
The clock is ticking towards the year 2000, and just 24 days remain until the party of the century. But what about your portfolio? Is it poised to profit as we move into 2000 and beyond? All this month, Bloomberg Television takes you beyond 2000 to help you make the most of your money in the new millennium. And this morning on the Millennium Plan, Outlook 2000, a look at mutual funds as we enter the new century. And joining me is Gary Ambrose. He's the president of Personal Capital Management, and Vern Hayden, president of the Hayden Financial Group. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Paige.
Where will mutual funds be in 2000?
Well, they're going to be busy. That's number one. Because everybody's waking up. Everybody's looking at their CDs and they're saying, you know, we don't want to be in the bank anymore. Everybody's made so much money in the stock market in these last few years. Even those who haven't gone there yet, they're coming in January.
They certainly think that mutual funds are a safe way to play the stock market. How fast do you think they're going to be growing?
I think what's going to happen is people are going to see a little contraction at the end of the year. And when they flip on the lights January 1st, when it comes January 3rd and the market opens, money's going to pour into that market, and a lot of it's going to go into technology and some small cap growth funds.
Well, let's talk about the sectors that you like in mutual funds. Vern, your favorite sector.
Well, I like technology a lot. However, I think it's kind of like the syndrome of moths flying into the light, too, because I think a lot of people are going to get killed in technology to a certain degree if they are picking individual stocks, because they're picking stocks without any earnings, without much future yet. They're going out 10, 15 years and projecting earnings. That's crazy, and some of those stocks are going to blow up.
What about picking a tech fund with a lot of internet?
I think that a tech fund like First Hand Technology with Kevin Landis is a great pick, and there are several others, but I feel especially safe with him.
You also
I don't know, it's a little scary, because you know, you look at these tech funds, even the funds themselves, people have a false sense of security. They don't want to buy an individual stock, but we'll buy a fund because we'll be safe. That's nonsense. All a fund does is has a lot of stocks in it. So if the stocks are a little scary, the fund's going to be equally scary.
But
so
Gary,
it's really not safe.
You got pros picking those stocks,
yeah,
so I think that helps a lot.
These guys who look like they're pros. No, that's true, that's true. But a lot of the funds, a lot of the stocks the funds are buying are also stocks that don't have such great earnings and have real questions. So my advice to the clients who are going into these funds, and they should go into these funds, is buckle that seatbelt very tightly and don't panic, because these funds are going to have incredible swings. So the ones who are going to get killed, and they are going to get killed, are the ones who are going to go in, watch it plummet 35%, pull out, and then they're going to miss the 60% run up.
So you have to stay in it, and you have to have the same stomach you would have even if you didn't go into a fund. It's not a safe haven, which many of us think it is.
Exactly.
Also, as you said, as we were discussing during the break, fund managers, very important. How do you know who's a good fund manager? I mean, you can look at performances, but you never know. I want to get to sectors you like. You also like tech. Tech's also your favorite sector.
It is. It's a good sector as long as you're conscious that you're not going to go out. You need to have an iron constitution and iron other parts of the anatomy as well. If you're tough and you can stick it out, you're doing just fine.
Let me ask you, what about a tech fund with a lot of internet holdings?
I would like it. Internet is clearly the wave of the future. Now, the problem is people are waking up and saying internet stocks are not making money yet, so maybe we need to look at those a little bit. But in the long run, that's clearly the way the world is going, so why not?
Also, mid-cap value. I want to get, speaking of where the world is going, international. You like international. Vern, international was not on your list. You also say, Gary, international in February, March. Why?
Right. Here's my fear. Come January, we're going to flick the lights. They're going to go on. But they're not going on in Asia. And there's a number of countries in Europe where they're not going to go on as well. And there's going to be some panic on the international side, out of the country. So I'm a little nervous about having too much overweight in Europe, in Asia today. In the end of January, they're going to realize that it's going to all go away, and I think money's going to start pouring in there as well, and it's a tremendous growth opportunity.
You like Japan?
Japan's been wonderful, but I like even the little undiscovered niches. I would stay with the rest of Asia for now, and I would even start looking perhaps at Latin America, which has not done all that well, and that might be a great time to buy undervalue and just sit tight.
People have been talking about Brazil performing. It hasn't performed yet. Vern, you don't even have international on your list of favorite sectors.
No, but I do like kind of worldwide, and worldwide is different in that the manager has the option of coming back into the U.S. if they want to. That's why later on I've picked Janus Worldwide, because I think Helen Young Hayes is very smart on the Asian stocks as well as European, but she comes back into the U.S. for safety when she needs to.
You know, here's where I do disagree with Vern. I have to tell you, I don't want to give the manager that much control. If I want to pick a sector, I'd like the manager to stay with that sector. If I want to be domestic, I'll pick domestic. If I want to allocate X percentage international, I want that money. If it was wrong pick, okay, it's my error. I don't want the manager to have that much latitude. I want somebody who knows the country I'm going into or who knows the marketplace I'm going into, and then let them do their job.
But the problem I have with that is that I think this manager is much smarter than I am. For instance, a manager on a Japan fund, most Japan funds are way over 100% this year.
Sure.
And I think the manager is much better at picking those stocks. However, if I have a worldwide fund and that manager is really smart, if it's Helen Young, hey, she'll pull out of there. Because I think Japan may really run into some bumps next year because they've been artificially propped up by their own government, and they're not showing the kind of profits they really should show in a lot of their companies in order to continue the pace at which some of these funds have grown.
Well, a lot of people are scared that Japan's not going to hold up, Gary.
It's not going to hold up. Japan by itself is not going to hold up, and I would be very loath. As a general rule, last year's very best sector fund is going to be next year's very worst sector fund. That happens all the time. So to go into Japan, once the articles, once you look at the New York Times, you look at the Wall Street Journal, Japan, you know it's time to get out of Japan.
Get out.
Exactly.
So what is the next country? You said you like Latin America.
But I would go with the rest of Asia, and I would start looking at Latin America, and I would go for an international exposure overall, because all of the fun has been here, and Europe is starting to catch up, and I think they really will.
Gary Ambrose, Vern Hayden, stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to have more on this mutual fund, and we're going to get to their picks as we do our Millennium Outlook for 2000.
Do you know when to place a trade? Do you know when it's time to take your profit? Do you know when to cut your losses? Do you want to know? There is a way. TradeStation 2000i can show you. All you need is a system, your own system that tells you when to buy and when to sell. Then you can test your trading ideas before risking your hard-earned money and trade with confidence based on fact, not greed, emotion, or fear. Knowing when is that simple. Call within the next 15 minutes and we'll send you a free video that will show you in 1/2 hour exactly how you can improve your bottom line when you use TradeStation 2000i to discover when to trade. So call 1-800-808-3241 now for your free video. You only have 15 minutes to call. Call 1-800-808-3241. Call now before your time or your trade is up.
Do rich people deserve more space than the rest of us? Was technology meant to improve their lives alone? Do the stars shine for their eyes only? Introducing the special edition Century 2000. It's the first limited edition that isn't limited to the rich.
And during Buick's Countdown to 2000 event, get this special Millennium Package offer.
The new Century 2000 by Buick. A luxury car for everyone.
Like the Amanita villosa, the Amanita virosa is a white mushroom that grows in Nova Scotia. However, unlike the villosa, it's poisonous if ingested. The same mistake can happen investing internationally, if you base decisions strictly on geographic, region, or industry. That's why American Century's international team makes its investments company by company based on earnings growth, which earned these funds impressive ratings. We think it's just a smarter and healthier way to invest. Call 1-888-ACI-FUNDS.
Welcome back. We're continuing our look at mutual funds with financial planners Gary Ambrose and Vern Hayden. I want to get to some of the funds that you actually like, Vern. Thornburg Value Fund. Tell us about this fund.
I like this because a guy named Bill Fries was recruited away from USAA down in San Antonio, Texas, for his great skills in managing 3 funds for them. And he was recruited to manage personal money and pension money for this company. 2 years later, they opened Thornburg Value. And Bill Fries has a definitive philosophy. Even though he's value, once a stock crosses the line and becomes a growth stock, he doesn't sell it. He hangs on as long as it's a good company. And it's a good core holding for a portfolio. He's done very well. He's even beaten the S&P 500.
That's not
for
bad.
3 years.
Janice Worldwide, we were speaking about that earlier because of Helen Young Hayes, who you like very much.
Right. I like her. She's up over 50% this year, and that's okay with me. I don't have to get the hundreds every year by any means, but I think that she's got the flexibility I like to see in a manager, because I don't know when to pull out of Japan or necessarily when to go into Europe, and I have ideas, but I think that a real pro like this has a much better idea than I do. So that's why I like the latitude of still being able to come back to the U.S.
Isn't it true that Janice Worldwide has been coming back more heavily into the U.S.
It has. But she's also repositioned money into Europe lately and has been in Asia for the last year.
We haven't talked about Europe as a great holding for a mutual fund.
I think it's coming on strong starting next year.
It is. Europe's going to come back. I think they're waking up, even though the euro's getting beaten lately, but I think they're going to get their act together come 2000.
You also like First-Hand Technology Value Fund, which really resembles a Silicon Valley Insider's portfolio.
That's right. Kevin Landis, of course, lives there. And it's called First-Hand because he's got first-hand experience since he was in the tech area before he went into managing funds. You know, that fund has been the #1 fund of all funds for 5 years. When I first met him, he's a giant of a guy, and he's, you know, equally smart. He just walks into some corporation and talks to their president. He scares them into making a profit, you know?
That's the kind of manager you want to have running your money.
Right.
But when you do a First-Hand Technology Value Fund, should you be worried about a tech correction coming up in the next year? I mean, you need a strong stomach to go into a fund like that.
Absolutely. That's why it's a matter of what % of your portfolio should be so focused in technology. And right about now, I'd say about 15, maybe 20% would be fine for a sector fund.
Right, we call it the sleep quotient. I mean, the bottom line is, how much could you have and still sleep well at night? That's the bottom line.
What would you recommend to your clients?
Absolutely, 15, 20% if they can afford it, if they can really sleep well. The ones who are I know are going to call and panic and say, how'd you do this to me? And the ones who are going after me with their lawyers or their guns, those are the ones you got to back off a little bit and say, no, if you can only handle 5 or 10%, that's just fine. Let's go with that.
How much in international? What percentage?
20%.
You would do 20% international
I would do 20%
right
international, 80% domestic. I'd probably do this moment 10% international and move it up to 20% come the end of January, beginning of February, once we get through the Y2K issue, which I don't think is going to be much of an issue here, but again, I think it will be somewhat of an issue there.
And that's why I would go 40% in a worldwide fund, because of that flexibility of coming back into the U.S.
Excuse me?
I would go 40% with a
in the
worldwide
40%.
fund. Right,
Okay.
because part of that money is going to be back in the U.S.
Y2K, do you think it's going to be that big of a deal?
I think it'll be a psychological thing toward the end of the year. As I said, when the lights go on January 1st, on the 3rd, people will rush into the market. I think the market will go up the first week of 2000.
Going forward in the millennium, going forward 2000, 2001 and beyond, we're going to see investors getting out of the U.S. more and their mutual funds getting more comfortable with international holdings?
I think so. There's going to be more comfort all over the world. We're going to see more markets popping up in Asia. The markets overseas are going to become more regulated. They're going to become more in conformance with American standards, American accountability. I think people are just going to have a much greater comfort level with them.
I think people will be even more comfortable with the U.S. because there's been a recent revision on the part of the government in terms of productivity of companies going back retroactively about 10 years. It shows that it's been a lot more productive than they initially thought, and that's driving more money to come into our companies in the next, I think, the next several years.
America's a wonderful country.
And you think the economy is just going to keep going forward? These mutual funds are going to keep growing?
There'll be corrections. There'll be road bumps, speed bumps.
There will be corrections, and so that's why I was asking you
But there's going to be upward momentum. We're going to still see continual growth.
Talking about Asia, Japan, we already talked about Japan. What other parts of Asia? China, Korea?
Anything around it, Singapore, all of those areas. There's such incredible amounts of vast resources there that people are starting to use. Technology is starting to go over there. Even what they do best, the manufacturing facilities that they have there. People are starting to make more markets there. There's a lot of currency floating over there. It's great for the economy.
So perhaps a fund with a smattering in Asia. Okay. Vern Hayden, Gary Ambrose, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning about mutual funds, and we will be right back.
Small business software, $400. Letterhead, $610. Office supplies, $90. Remembering who you work for, priceless. MasterCard Business Bonuses lets you earn miles good on any airline, no blackouts. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard Business Card.
GMC Convoy 2000 is here. Trucks with capabilities that will change the way you look at the road. Professional-grade pickups, SUVs, and family vans designed better than they need to be. Like the incredibly smooth-riding 2000 GMC Jimmy, an SUV with a full-length steel frame, its backbone. Now get $2,000 cash back when you purchase select 2000 Jimmy models. GMC. Do one thing, do it well.
That for Chris?
Yep. Just 2 more days till his big e-commerce project goes live.
Crunch time.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
We go nonstop, from idea to implementation.
To sing, for me, is the greatest freedom. Freedom to soar, to swoop, to go wherever I want when I sing. All aspects of the creative process involve computers. The genie's out of the bottle. We are computer people.
Welcome back to Bloomberg Television. Plenty of news in this morning's Web Watch. First, new news that Microsoft is dialing up a deal with Ericsson, the world's third biggest maker of cell phones. The two companies are planning a wireless phone venture. They will develop products that let users access the internet on the go. Well, it has been quite an auspicious debut in the S&P 500 for Yahoo. But both stockholders and those who like to be may be puzzled about what to do now. Is it time to buy and get on the bandwagon, or sell and take profits? Joining me now to look at what's going on with Yahoo is Bloomberg reporter Laurel Kenner. Hi, Laurel.
Hi.
Good to see you. Now, what is going on with Yahoo? It's hard to understand, actually.
Well, the stock has jumped about 60% since it was announced that it would join the S&P 500 index about 5 days ago. That's a huge jump, and it rose 24% tomorrow. Now, a lot of those trades were small. 500 shares was the average, which tells you that probably day traders were jumping on the bandwagon, getting into the momentum. And it's a safe bet to say that they're going to sell, and in fact, it did fall, in after-hours trading.
So that's what
down
happened.
a euro.
Fell, yeah. And then, but many of these trades were small, average of 500 shares. What does that mean?
Well, it means that what you've got is a lot of individual people who are jumping on the momentum bandwagon, and that they're not going to stay in. They're not the long-term investors who are saying, hey, this is a great company, I'm going to stay in for the long haul. They're going to take their profits.
Okay, so, and Yahoo was also down in Europe today.
That's right, and Yahoo will be the 30th largest company in the S&P 500. It begins trading as a new member today. It'll probably weigh on the NASDAQ a little more because it's more important to that index.
Okay, now if Mr. Investor is sitting out there, what do you think? Well, obviously, you don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But what are some advisors saying about this?
Well, we talked to Tom Galvin at Donaldson Lufkin General yesterday, and we said, is this an overvalued stock? Is this time to sell? And he said, no, it's still on our recommend list. It's like AT&T was in the 40s. So he's taking a very long-term view.
Okay, so I guess that would explain the interest in Yahoo with an exploding market cap, right?
It is the #1 internet destination in the U.S., the U.K., and #2 in France and Germany.
Right. But the fact of the matter is that, for instance, in the 40s, people invested in airlines, and some of these airlines fell by the wayside. The same thing happened with other industries, correct? And how do we know that Yahoo is going to be a company that's going to last?
Well, if you're investing, a safe rule is to pick the dominant company. It's always been a pretty good strategy. And yeah, a lot of airlines have failed. A lot of them were snapped up in mergers. So it's not a sure thing that you're going to lose money.
But Yahoo is a successful company, correct?
Yes, they've surprised on the upside with their earnings for 5 out of the last 6 quarters, and they are actually making money.
Okay, excellent. Laurel Kenner, we appreciate that. Bloomberg News reporter, thanks for coming in. Many of you are watching the Bloomberg Morning Show on the USA Network. At this time, we have to say goodbye to our East Coast audience. But remember, we are always on DirecTV 24 hours a day. To find Bloomberg Television at other times of the day, you can call 1-800-BLOOMBERG or visit our website at www.bloomberg.com/TV. And thanks for watching. Stay with Bloomberg for money, markets, and more.
This segment of Bloomberg's Web Watch is brought to you by Visa. Visa, it's everywhere you want to be.
Starting a small business takes a burning entrepreneurial spirit, a singular, bold vision, the courage to fight an endless uphill battle. But that's not all you need. Oh, no.
We need some furniture.
And some curtains would be nice. That's why you need the Visa business card, because Jules sells her furniture like millions of other places. Doesn't take any card from American Express.
I love these chairs. And I'm really happy with these window treatments.
What? Visa business card. It's everywhere you want to be.
Even the Lone Ranger never rode alone. Ernst & Young, from thought to fin.